Welcome to my pseudo review slash discussion slash rant about Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now I want to start by saying that this is kind of an unusual format for reviewing stuff, especially for me. I kind of like to do reviews as more of like a traditional, here's the footage of what I'm talking about and here's, my formal list of things that I want to talk about it. However, when I started this channel, I did a lot of reviews and, it's really disheartening to put a lot of work into something and only break 100 views on it, even years later. So I'm just doing it this way until I build up a big enough fan base so I can do those kinds of reviews again. So for now, this is kind of how it's going to be when I review a game. I am going to have some footage right here. In this case, for Pokemon, I'm going to have some footage of Distant Kingdom videos. So shout out to Distant Kingdom for his videos. They show a lot of the things that I look for and think about when I'm playing video games, especially when it comes to his Pokemon videos. And it's going to give you a good example of some of the things that I'm going to be talking about in this video. Again, this is kind of a weird format to be recording, and it's really just me and the camera, but don't worry, because I took public speaking in high school and in college, so I think I can handle this. I got myself a little notepad down here. It's kind of my handwritten PowerPoint of sorts. So, Pokemon Sword and Shield, I've put over 50 hours into the game. If there was a word I could use to describe this game, it would be inconsistent. The negative parts that I'm going to be talking about later on in this video are definitely in the technical side of the game because, oh boy. Let's focus on the positives real quick. The Pokemon in this game look amazing. I love these designs of the new Pokemon, especially Yamper, especially Ice-Q. And, there's a few others that I want to shout out too, like this, but there's too many. There's too many to shout out. The Pokemon designs are amazing, and whoever they put in charge of designing these new Pokemon did a great job. These are some of the best Pokemon in years, in my opinion. And this is coming from someone who is a Gen 2 fanatic. Like, I love Johto. As you can see, I got my Espeon back there. I have more plushies too, especially of Johto Pokemon. I'm still waiting to get a giant life-size Mantine. I want one so bad, but anyways, that topic aside. I actually kind of like the experience share being on. I know that that's something that a lot of people complain about. I do think they could have just made it optional. I would want that to be something optional in a menu though, not like an item, so that you don't have to wait to get it, because I personally loved the experience share being a thing from the beginning in this game, especially with the fact that you can go into your Pokemon box from anywhere. So I was constantly switching out my Pokemon as I went through, and I've never gotten to do this with a Pokemon game before. This is kind of new. I had a blast just playing with all these different kinds of Pokemon. And then, don't get me started on the Pokemon camp, because that's what really made this game for me, I'm not gonna lie. I loved being able to take my Pokemon out everywhere and just pet them and play with them, and cooking curry is a mixed bag because you have to do that same mini game over and over again, but I just love doing that, like seeing what curry that I have made by the end of it, and I love seeing my Pokemon just wait around the curry like excited like. And I think honestly, I think the Pokemon camp was the best part of the game. Now the story, the gym leaders, it was all very fresh. Like normally people wanted, like a bigger story when it came to Pokemon. But I kind of liked how, since this is their first Pokemon game on a console, they kind of went with the original story formula of your character who is just trying to become the champion. I like the way they throw the champion in your face the whole time, and you have like 3 rivals. I love that. Okay, so you got the friendly rival who is annoying as fuck, but you know what? It's kind of cool, his character arc later on-ish, whatever. Then you got the popular girl, which is, like another formula of a rival, which I really like, honestly. I think she's my favorite. And she has like this whole team that follows her around. The last rival that you have is Bede, I think you say his name. I don't know. But he's like the jerk rival, whatever. And he also goes through a character arc, which I kind of like. The story, it's nothing groundbreaking, especially when it comes to, modern standards of storytelling. But for Gamefreak, it's a whole new level. They put at least some sort of effort into making their characters likable, which I feel like they usually don't do. But later on I'll talk about this again, and it's kind of a hit and miss because they miss a lot when it comes to, of course, the technical side of their storytelling. The 3 rival setup was great, and then they're not technically your only rivals. Like, you're technically rivaling all of the gym leaders as well, because, the Elite Four and all is basically them trying to become the champion as well, and then you see them outside of, their gyms doing other things, which is kind of fresh for the series, and I like that. I don't like to be one of those people, honestly, that compares Pokemon to just other Pokemon games. I like to compare this game to gaming as a whole. While yes, this is the best Pokemon game visually, it's not saying a lot because Pokemon never set a high bar. Matter of fact, I think they set an even lower bar when they released Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and I honestly think they did that on purpose. I think they released Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, making it look, actually kind of really bad. And then the gameplay and all this and that, like getting rid of Pokemon in that game, like only keeping it to the 150, made them set this low bar. Now let's talk about the negatives of Pokemon Sword and Shield, and we'll talk about this low bar that they've built up from, but in the grand scheme of things is actually a lower bar than past games. Okay, so first, of course, we have not all the Pokemon in the game. So Pikachu and Eevee set this low bar with the 150, and you're like, okay, that's fine, we just have the 150 again, it's the original 150. Now they're like, okay, here, now take 400 out of our 1,000 Pokemon pool. And on one hand, it's like, oh, that's more than the 150 that we got in the last game. But on the other hand, Sun and Moon, which was on the 3DS, had all the Pokemon, which was like over 800, I think. And now we have less than half of that, and it's fine. I don't mind that in particular. I've never been one to even have friends that play Pokemon with me, so I never really traded outside of my own game before, so I only really caught the Pokemon that were in the region when I played the games. So I'm fine with having a limited pool of Pokemon in the game. My issues with that, of course, lie in, and you've heard this 1,000,001 times, my issues with that lie in the fact that Gamefreak said that this was for the sake of having higher quality animations, but that was a huge lie. We all know, we've seen that. You're probably seeing something right now showing a bad animation right here in a Distant Kingdom video. I just have it randomly on loop right now, okay? But rather than just talking about the technical side being bad as a whole, let's go into specifics. So first thing I want to talk about is the wild area. And this is weird because a lot of people talk about the wild area like it's this big positive in the game. Like this was the one part that they enjoyed, whatever. I have the opposite, actually. I preferred the routes to the wild area. The wild area is just so ugly. It's so ugly. I hate walking around in the wild area. People are talking about, oh yeah, I can finally control the camera now. You can control the camera now? Yeah, barely. Try moving that thing up and down. It goes like this far up, this far down. Like you have this very limited view of up and down that you can look, and it sucks because I want to see like the red lights for the den, see where they are from one area to the other, but I can't do that because the camera doesn't let me move it up. On top of that, I can hardly see what Pokemon are around me, and when I want to move the camera down to kind of get like a bird's eye view, I can't even do that either because the camera hardly lets me move it. Yes, you can move it all the way around left and right, but pop-ins? Okay, we all know this game has an issue with pop-ins. Like, you move forward and things just appear on screen. And the wild area takes us to another level. On top of this, the graphics in the wild area really took a dump. Like, the graphics in the rest of the game aren't that good either, but this is somehow even worse. Like, we all know the tree texture. We all know the grass texture, the sky, the just... Everything is so unrefined, and again with the camera controls, I want to go back to that for just a second. When you're moving the camera around and you're on a hill, and you're near the edge of the hill, and you move the camera towards the edge of the hill to try to get like a view of everything that you're facing, You're not facing off the hill, you're facing in from the edge of the hill. When you try to do that, the camera treats the edge of the hill as a wall, so that you don't even really get to see the view that you wanted to see, and it's janky. It's so janky. On top of this, you got Pokemon spinning around in circles. You got Pokemon that don't move around naturally, like their wings aren't moving. You have Pokemon in the water, and they're not making splashes unless they're the ones that like jump in and out. You don't have splashes. Like there's like a Gyarados, and it moves through the water, and there's just like the water is not moving around it, and it looks terrible. It looks like an unfinished product. And then now let's talk about the online. Do not, I repeat, do not turn on online while you're in the wild area. Don't do it, because if you do, the game, it's already laggy without this at 30 frames per second, which I don't know how this game is at 30 frames per second and laggy and having all these technical issues, but whatever. So you turn online on, and you're supposed to have real people around you. I get what they're going for again. Like, you're supposed to be like, it's kind of like an MMO type thing, but with 4 people max at once on screen. And you don't even get to have that experience because you turn it on, and I swear, it's like walking around with ghosts in the area. It's actually kind of scary. Like, the first time I did this, and even the second and third time, I turned it on and honestly kind of got really fucking scared and had to just turn it off because I was creeped out at the fact that I would walk and then this person would pop up like 2 feet in front of me, even worse than the pop-ins that already happen in this game, like 2 feet in front of me, and just stands there staring into space, and it is scary. Like, if the Pokemon company wanted to make a horror game, they got that right. Just turn online on, you're gonna have yourself a fright. That was not supposed to rhyme, but it did. Max raid battles are fun the first 3 times you do it, and then after that they kind of become same old, and there's just no replay value. Okay, maybe I'll just move on to replay value right now. So replay value of this game, or basically what it would be for this kind of game, would not be replay value, but so much as like things to do after you finish a story. I'm not into breeding and all that shit, and not because I'm not into it. Wait, let me that sounded wrong. I'm not into breeding Pokemon in the games, you know, like getting the perfect IVs, because like, what's the point in the game? Like, I'm not into competitive battling. I'm sorry, but a negative aspect of Pokemon in general, and especially so in this game, is that battling is kind of boring and it's slow, and I feel like they could have at least done a better job at, when they were making this game, making the battles more interesting. I'll get into the animations later because that's a whole nother story, but when it comes to just, you know, a stat buff in the middle of the battle, or, you know, text scrolling on screen, everything needs to be faster, because as is, it is way too slow. I hate running into Pokemon because there's all this text that takes a long time to load, and it takes a long time for it to finish writing and me be able to press past it. Like, even with text scrolling set to fast, even with me pressing A repeatedly, like, it takes forever. When it shows the weather coming down, when it shows the Pokemon's abilities, it all takes forever, and it doesn't need to. It really doesn't need to take that long. They should have had more post-game story. They should have had more, I don't know, more things like Pokemon Camp. That would have been fun. Like, give me a reason to train these Pokemon up to, like, do more things with them, since the battles are boring, you know? Something. Make trainers in the overworld, like the NPCs, make them rebattleable. Yeah, that's totally a word. Make me able to challenge the gyms again or something, because that's all these towns have, are these gyms. I have no reason to go back to these towns. I go there, I'm like, okay, this was a pretty town. I really liked this town, but now I don't have anything to do with it because there's no battles to be had. There's no gym to go work towards. There's nothing, because like the gyms take up the majority of each of these towns, and the towns kind of act like one-way paths, and you can't even, like, experience a town to the fullest. Like, for instance, Motostoke, which is, like, the big industrial town, you see people, like, having, like, their Pokemon out playing in these, like, hopscotch circles, and I could have sworn I was going to be able to pick a Pokemon and have it play hopscotch, but no, I couldn't do that. So I get to just watch this Wynot play hopscotch and be jealous. Like, everyone in this game is having more fun than me, and it's not fair. So things like that, and then, like, the Dragon City, which is as big as Motostoke, with a castle. Like, I can't even go into the castle. That's so sad. There's barely any hidden paths everywhere. There's no dungeons in this game. There's no puzzles. There's just walkways and battles that you can only do once, and that's it. That's it. Yes, we have the wild area, but again, like I said, that's just an ugly, buggy mess, and I don't know. I don't understand it. Now let's talk about pop-ins specifically, because pop-ins happen everywhere. And it's so sad to me, because pop-ins, first of all, these pop-ins don't need to be happening. It's a 30 frame per second game with terrible graphics. They should at least be able to have everything on screen at once. This is a clear sign that Gamefreak doesn't know how to develop games for an HD console, basically, because other games on this system do everything just fine, with better graphics, with better frame rates, and, like, take a look at the port of Bayonetta 2. That's, honestly, I think that's the best looking game on the Switch and the Wii U. And that's 60 frames per second. Amazing graphics, amazing animations, everything's on screen at once. There's no pop-ins, everything looks amazing. And then you also have Platinum Games' game Astral Chain, which, yes, that's 30 frames per second because that game is huge. I still haven't even finished that game, and I've played it for over 40 hours. I've never played an action game that long, not even Nier Automata, which is also a Platinum game. And that game was huge as well. But yeah, these are technical issues that don't need to be in the game. But if you are going to have these technical issues, there are artistic ways to go around it. For instance, let me use this as the best example. The last city that you go in this game is the ugliest, most technically unsound city in the entire game. And it's so sad that they wanted this to be the last area because they did such a bad job with it. The pop-ins are even worse in this area for some reason. Like, the pop-ins are already bad as the game goes, but now they're, again, 2 feet in front of you, kind of like the ghosts online that you, the ghost characters online that you see. And it sucks because all they had to do to fix this issue of these pop-ins looking so bad in this game, in this area in particular too, was just pull the camera closer. The camera's pulled so far back that you can see everything, so you see everything appear on screen like it's out of nowhere and then vanish again out of nowhere. Like, you go up to this area that has a bunch of concession stands, and the concession stands pop in along with the NPCs, and like all they had to do was turn the camera, which we probably would have had a better view if the camera was turned, and then they could have, you know, like turned into it, and then you see them there. Like, there's all sorts of things that they could have done and they just didn't do. Now let's talk about the animations in general. Where do I start with this? And I'm talking about, like, in cutscenes. The fight where you fight Eternatus looked so good. And then you have cutscenes like this one entire segment. Chairman Rose's hench girl, I forgot her name, Eliana or something like that, I don't know. So she is like having this freak out of something. It was all just out of nowhere, and it came off so bad. And she like gave these keys to this guy, and let me tell you, this whole segment was so bad. Like, you're supposed to chase this guy around this final area that you're in, and it's basically like he's hiding. But it's the most awkward thing I've ever played through, and it basically climaxes with you going up this huge tower at the end. You're like, oh my god, I've been seeing this tower on the map from the beginning of the game. I can't wait to see what's in it. I can't wait to traverse it. Like, I was thinking like Pokemon Coliseum. Like, there's the final tower in that game that's like huge and sprawling, and you get up there and then there's like the bunch of fights on the way and like items and mazes, and then you fight this huge final fight at the top. I was expecting something like that. You get there, and the whole tower is an elevator. It's literally an elevator. And you fight 3 people, but it's the exact same character models the entire time. It's a guy and a girl. The same character model, and each time they come in, they say they have a different name. And I am not about to be here to believe that these were 3 sets of people. I am here to believe that this was the same 2 people telling you that they change their name each time you go up the elevator and fight them. It was awful. Awful. Terrible. And on top of that, Hop is there the whole way to heal your Pokemon. I'm not saying this game wasn't challenging, especially since I was constantly swapping out Pokemon to make it hard for myself. So like every time I had a Pokemon get like a high level, I switched it out for a lower level Pokemon. And that made it more fun and challenging in the long run. And I think everyone should probably do that, honestly, especially now that you can go into your box at any time. Why did that have to happen? Also, Hop. Oh my god. The amount of times I'm stopped to do for everything. Every time I finish a gym battle, every time I go to a new town, every time I exit a new town, there's always someone to stop and talk and say pointless shit, which I'm not even going to go too far into. Like, that's the basic thing of that whole thing, and I've heard so many people complain about that already. I don't want to be another one to just rant about it too much. That is an issue, though. And then there is a scene soon after of Eliana, or whatever her name is, like, she's walking back and forth in this room. And this Gamefreak does not know how to develop a 3D game. So the game visualizes this by her walking 2 steps, stopping abruptly, her character model just turning, walking 2 steps, stopping abruptly, her character model just turning. Oh, and it doesn't even turn all the way. So she walks 2 steps, she turns to the side, then turns again, then walks 2 steps, turns to the side, turns again, walks 2 steps, and it keeps doing that on repeat. And this is supposed to be her panting back and forth like she's nervous or scared of something, but yo, this looked so bad. It looked so bad. This was the moment that I had to turn to my boyfriend who was in the room at the same time and tell him, like, is this for real? And he looked at me and he said, this is a rip-off. This game is a rip-off. And honestly, I had nothing to say to that. Because, I mean, yeah. The Game Freak really just put out this technically shit game and just made bank on it. Like, and the worst part is, this is solidified now. Since this game sold well, that's telling Game Freak that they can put out some shit and it's gonna sell and they don't even have to try. This sealed the deal, which is so sad to me. When you boot up the game, Chairman Rose, he's speaking, like literally his mouth is moving, but there's no dialogue. Like there's text written. Game Freak, if you're not gonna have voice acting, don't animate someone's mouth moving. It just made the whole thing seem awkward, and the mixing between the music and like the text box and just the whole thing was just so badly done. And I could tell what they were going for. They wanted it to be like an epic and grand opening, but it didn't come off that way. It honestly came off as kind of a joke. And that's the kind of things that I keep an eye out for these things. I'm kind of used to quality in video games. I like quality video games. You can see I have Nier Automata on my back wall here. I like quality. And Pokemon games up until Gen 6, I think were pretty high quality. So it's kind of sad to see the slow degradation over time. Now I want to get into the final thing that turns me off on this game. And this is the biggest, number one biggest thing that I have an issue with this game, and that is the Pokemon battle scaling and animations. So, first let me talk about the animations. It's stiff. It's stiff as fuck. It's boring. I don't want to watch it. They need to do better. The Pokemon need to have better animations, and especially since they were claiming that they were doing better animations and they lied, that's a big no-no, a big turn-off. I'm not happy with it. But the biggest thing is the scaling of the Pokemon. I don't know if this was a side effect of Dynamax, which is kind of a lame gimmick in the first place, so that I don't see why they prioritize Dynamax over scaling of the Pokemon, like, in their actual sizes. I don't know if that's what caused this. I'm hoping that's all it is, and I'm hoping that the next Pokemon game does not have Dynamaxing, just so we don't have this issue again. Please. So you throw out a Pokemon that's supposed to be big, say a Gyarados. It's barely bigger than your character, if not just the same size. You throw out a Tyranitar, it's smaller than your character. Why? You throw out a Wailord, okay, we've all seen this. You throw out a Wailord, and it is tiny as fuck. This is supposed to be the biggest Pokemon in existence. Until now, we have Eternatus, who is actually supposed to be bigger than Wailord. How big is Eternatus? The same size as the Gyarados that you throw out, which is already smaller than an actual size Gyarados. And this is also the same in the Pokemon camp. They're also small in the camp. They're not as small in the camp, but they're still small in the camp. Like, they look like the Gyarados looks like he's bait for you to catch a larger Pokemon. He doesn't look like the large Pokemon that you want to catch, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's weird because you're in the open area, in the wild area, and things are actually scaled properly in that area. They're big. But then you go into the battle, and then they shrink down, and it doesn't make any sense. This game is so inconsistent. So inconsistent. This is the best example of how inconsistent it is. And I don't understand why Gamefreak thought this was okay to put out. Okay, I've gone over the fact that there are positive things in this game, and I've gone over all these negative things. It's very clear that, in my opinion, this game is outweighed with the negatives over the positives. So with that being said, I'm scared for the future of Pokemon. I am scared that Game Freak's not going to take this same engine and do better with it next game. I'm really hoping that the reason for all these technical issues was the time constraints, mixed with the fact that this was the first engine they had to build on in a HD, in this new console that they're working on, which actually might also not even be true because it might be the same engine as Let's Go, which, God, I hope that's not true. It doesn't seem like the same engine, but it might be. But holy hell, please tell me that that's the reason. But even still, if that was the reason, they should have hired more people. They want to keep their team small, but why? If you know you have to keep up yearly releases, especially now that you're doing things in HD, hire more people. They're keeping their team small. I think if what I heard correctly was they have like around 150 members of their team that work on these games. And it wasn't until people started complaining after the E3 Direct that they hired more people, and I think they only bumped it up to like 300 people. This is the largest franchise in history. Like, this is the largest franchise in existence. And they have a small-ass team working on these yearly releases. Why? Why? Try harder. Put some effort. Omori was interviewed one time, and he said that on a scale of 1 to 10, Pokemon Sword and Shield was a 9 to develop. Well, if that's the case, hire more people. Break up the workflow. Spread it out. Like, you could have had someone, you know, doing, like, someone working on the story animations. You could have someone working on the battle animations. Individual animations for the Pokemon. You could have someone working on a set amount and another person working on a set amount. You didn't have to cut out Pokemon for when you're reusing everything. You're reusing the models. Oh, And now let's talk about the technical side of the load times. I almost forgot about this. You see when you load up into a battle, when you load into a new area, things like that, things take way longer to load than they should, and also the frame rate dips like a lot. The reason for this is, and to put this in a summary, is that Gamefreak doesn't know how to develop video games, but let me give you a detailed explanation. So the reason for this is, Gamefreak does not know how to reuse the assets in their games. So instead of having one asset and copying it and pasting it somewhere else, they programmed it as a completely different asset. If that makes any sense to you. I don't want to explain this too much. I have a basic knowledge of programming, and I've talked about this with people who actually do program, and they knew exactly what we were talking about. So let me give you the best example I can, and that is when you load into a battle from the overworld. Say you just got into a fight with a Pokemon trainer. The reason the frame rate dips so much and it takes so long for that battle to load is because instead of using your character model, the asset of your character model that's there in the overworld, and just moving him over into the battle and switching his pose, the game reloads a whole new character model, and it's reloading everything else. It's reloading the background, it's reloading the character model for your enemy, it's reloading all the Pokemon, it's reloading the sky, it's reloading everything as something new. And that is why the frame rate dips so much and why it takes so long for battles to load in and out. And it's a joke, especially in 2019. Well, now it's 2020, but especially in 2019. Why is your programming so bad? I don't understand, Gamefreak. Why are you so bad at programming when you have experience? Like, you would think you would know this by now. To take a look at something else like Persona 5, that game knows how to just load the same assets into this new space. So the only thing Persona 5 has to load when you go into a fight is the background. That's the only new thing it's loading, and that's why it's so seamless when you're going into it. But Pokemon? The biggest franchise in the world? Nope. Here, let's do everything the hard way and take up more memory on the game card than we need to, and take more memory space for the load times and everything than we need to. And that's why there's so many technical issues with this game. These people don't know how to develop a game. They don't. And it's so sad. Like, I have very basic programming knowledge, and I already could be telling them workarounds for certain things that they've done, like the reusing of Pokemon in the game, the models, the animations, everything. The fact that they already had the assets for Pokemon turning their heads to tell you that, like, they love you when the battle starts, like they did in Gen 7. They took that out in this game, even though they had the same Pokemon models in the game and the same, rigs to move that part of their body. They took that out, and instead now, when the Pokemon admires you, when you throw them out into battle, the whole model just turns, and the whole model bounces and turns. It's so ugly and bad, and you already had a better thing. Why did you make it worse? Why? And that pretty much just sums up my entire view of these new Pokemon games, is why is the technical side so bad? The game is still fun, but it's bogged down by these technical issues that are so in your face. Like, I can see a game having technical issues and it not being too bad because the game is fun, but these are so in your face the entire time. Like exponentially bad. It's just crazy to me how bad some of these technical issues are, that I'm having a good time, and next thing I know, I'm fixating on this ugly thing that they put in that they couldn't develop properly. It's bad. If I was to score this game on a scale of 1 to 10, when I first started it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be an 8. Then I kept going, and then that whole last segment happened. Let's see, by the end of that, let me tell you, my score has dropped down to like a 4 out of 10. This game is like a 4 out of 10. The technical issues are too bad, and the amount of fun this game has to offer is not worth it enough, especially with the fact that there's nothing to do after I beat the game. So that's it. That's all there is to it. The fun is spoiled by the technical issues. I enjoyed my time with the game, but like, I go back on there every once in a while now, hoping that there's something to do, and then there's just not, so then I turn the game back off again and go play something else, like Smash Brothers, or hell, even Bayonetta 2. Like, I replay that game more than I play Pokemon, which should have more, you know? But like, Bayonetta 2 is like, did endlessly replayable right. Pokemon, not so much. I don't know, guys. I don't know. It crazes me that we can have these leaps like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, and then Pokemon just have this small step forward, if you can even call it that, because it also took so many steps back at the same time. Oh god, and my complaints about this game don't come from a place of hatred for the series. Obviously, I love the series. I want it to be good. It comes from a place of worry. Like, I'm scared for what's to come. I'm scared we're never going to get a good Pokemon game again. I am scared that the games are going to get progressively worse, that Gamefreak's going to make more and more bad decisions. And if that's the case, God, I hope Nintendo gives this property over to someone else. Give it to like a different developer, someone to develop the games under them. Like Genius Seniority, they did an amazing job with Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Those games were amazing. The animations were amazing, especially for the time, and you could tell there was love poured into it. There was interesting things everywhere, and those weren't even full Pokemon games either, but they were still more fun than full Pokemon games. And they felt more like 3D Pokemon games than Pokemon Sword and Shield did, which is sad. So I'm just really hoping that the future of Pokemon brings something better, and it's sad that I have to be saying that with our first true console Pokemon HD experience. I'm trying to look past Let's Go, pretend that never happened, because that game was terrible. But I don't know. That's it. At the time of this recording, I have 0 patrons, so I have my Patreon linked in the description below, and if I am ever going to do a proper review again in the future, I'm probably going to need some patrons for support so that I can be able to take the time to do those kinds of reviews, because they do take a lot of time and effort, and I like to make things pretty because I'm a perfectionist. On top of that, I would love for you guys to like this video and subscribe, of course, if you liked the video, but I'm hoping you like the video too. Comment your thoughts in the comment section. What would you change about Pokemon Sword and Shield? What did you love about it? What did you hate about it? What do you hope for in a future installment? Which is kind of sad that we have to talk about that instead of rejoicing this new game, but whatever. Anyways, have a wonderful day. Oh my god, I sound like every YouTuber ever. I'm gonna stop. Okay, bye.